Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another exciting design tutorial with UXmate. Well, this is not going to be something based on the Figma or any other design tool. Today's tutorial will be more focused on the user experience design in its simplest form. Guys, you might have heard a lot of different definitions about the user experience. You might have heard about different perceptions about the user experience. But today we are going to explore what the user experience is in a nutshell. We will try to explore the different aspects of UX design, and we'll try to find the simplest form of UX design, and we'll try to master in it. Definitely it is not going to be a single tutorial, or no one can explain UX design in 15-20 minutes, but I'll try my best to give you the knowledge which I have gained in past 11 years of my experience. I'll be giving you my perception about the user experience design. Okay, so let's jump into the tutorial and let's get started with understanding of the UX design. You might have heard a lot of definitions, guys, but I feel UX in the simplest sentence, if somebody asks you define UX in a simple statement, I would say UX design is problem solving. That's it, right? No, not that's it, but yes, definitely end of the day, a job of UX designer is to solve the problems for the user, solve the problems for the businesses, and the real job, or a good user experience designer is basically make sure that people or users are using the things which you are designing, right? So until and unless the things or the products or the applications which you are designing are not going or not being used by the users, are not being used by the people, or I would say human being, then you are not a good user experience designer. So make sure, guys, whatever products you are going to design, whatever applications you are going to design, it doesn't matter, it has to be a physical product, or it has to be a digital product, or it could be a piece of application, it could be any damn thing, any damn product which is going to be which is meant to be used by the users or to be used by the human beings. But if your product is not being used by the human beings or the users, then you are you got a failure in the user experience, right? So basically you'd be seeing a lot of stuff about UX is try to make sure that you solve the problems for the user, try to understand the user goals. But is it the only part of user experience design? No, right? User goals, definitely the motivations of the user, the problems of the user, finding the problem statement is definitely one of the part of the UX design, but it is not the only UX design, right? So definitely UX design is revolving around users, but on other hand we need to also make sure that we are meeting to the business goal as well, right? So if you see a perfect UX design, or basically how you'd be able to do a perfect UX design is basically you have to find a sweet spot between users needs and the business goals, right? So if you are meeting only user needs, then okay, no, you are not doing the you are not adding any value to the business. And if business is not getting any value, business will no more, or business will no longer interested in providing the services to the users, because business is not getting any value out of it, right? So being a UX designer, our job is to make sure that we are understanding the user needs, we are understanding the business goals, and then we are finding a sweet spot, or we are basically balancing between user goals and business goals, right? So that overlapping part which you are seeing in the diagram is basically your UX design, okay, which is basically connecting the users and the business together, and users are getting value out of it, and which value is returned back to the business, and business will get value from the users. So basically value doesn't necessarily always has to be in the monetary form. It could be anything. It could be brand value, it could be reputation, it could be any it could have different aspects or different things when we talk about value. But basically that transaction has to be completed. Like, okay, it should not be a one way thing. The traffic should be from both ways. Users must get some value out of the the product which they are using, and if they are liking that product, then they would be returning that value in some or other forms to the users. So basically energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So it is just transferring its form from one end to another. So in the same words, you can say users are getting value in a form, and then users are returning that value in another form. So that value is basically converting from the or transferring from the business to users, and then users to business. So the transaction has to be keep on happening, and like in each and every use case, or in basically each and every use of the product. Okay. Also guys, basically when do the people use the application, right? So as I talked earlier, good UX designer make sure that users are using the things, right? But have you tried to understand when do users, or I would say when do you use a particular thing, or when do we use the things, right? So if we try to ask this question yourself, or if you try to understand the basics, or the integrity, or the details of it, and if you try to go deep into questioning yourself, okay, when do we use the things, when do I use the things? Okay, so if if you try to figure out the answers, those would be something similar to this, right? So we use things when we can easily figure out how to accomplish our tasks, or how to achieve our goals in the product, right? Or with the thing. It could not necessarily a product, it could be anything. So basically, if you see, users are not looking for the quarter-inch drill machine, they are looking for a quarter-inch hole in the wall, right? So it doesn't matter if the hole is made with a drill machine, or it is with any other sharp object. It doesn't matter. Is it using a nail and a hammer? User doesn't care, as long as their job is done, or their goal is accomplished, their task is accomplished. That's all for them. So not necessarily you will always be using a drill machine to do a hole, right? You may use n number of things, and that is what the user experience design is. Your product has to be your product, at least it has to be made to the user's needs, and it has to be accomplish the user's task, right? Then the next step or the next answer you would be finding the steps which are being taken in accomplishing a task. Those should be simple enough. Those should be even if those are the complex steps, but we need to make sure that those are kind of users are feeling very simple with them, or at least they should seem simple to the users, right? So again, the same example, right? So user would be taking a drill machine over a nail and hammer, because that is much easier approach to do a hole in a wall, right? So they would be doing it with a nail, and they would be spending almost half hour, or 15-20 minutes to making a hole. But if they use a drill machine, that is going to be a simplest approach, and they could be plug it in and simply do a hole in maybe less than a minute, right? So the steps in accomplishing the task, even if they are complex, they should seem simple, right? And then basically the cognitive load, or our sense of efforts should be minimized, right? At least user should be getting a feeling that, okay, I don't have to do a lot of efforts while using this thing, right? Also if you try to further explore this thing, like when do we use things, then you'd be also finding that, okay, the things which you are using, those are basically giving you clear and an immediate feedback, right? So whenever you are interacting with something, there has to be a clear and immediate feedback, right? So every action has to be an not necessarily equal and opposite reaction, but yes, in UX design it is, I would say, like every action should have and an reaction to it, and we can call it as a feedback. It could be positive feedback, it could be negative feedback, but definitely we need to try to make sure that we are giving a positive, a clear and a immediate response to the user's action, right? Let's say if user have clicked on a submit button, and though the form has been submitted immediately, but if user is not getting a response or a success or a error message in case of errors, they will not understand, okay, it has been submitted, right? So we need to make sure that whatever whatever actions has been taken by the user, they should get a clear and immediate feedback or the response to their actions, right? Also, I would like to add one thing in this is like there shouldn't be the potential for the errors. We need to we need to, or we have to try to minimize the effort, minimize the potential of user driven errors, right? So there could be a lot of different things, but in a nutshell, UX design is basically combination of user needs, I would not say combination, but I would say a balance between user needs and business goal. And a good UX designer makes sure that the products which he is designing, the things which he is designing, he makes sure that people are using them and people are happy while using them, right? And when do we use things? That's something we discussed. So generally we use things when those are easily easily usable, those are we can easily accomplish our task, right? So that should be the first goal of a UX designer, right? Let's go to the UX honeycomb, guys. I'm not sure if you have seen this, but another aspect of the UX design is basically valuable. As we talked earlier, if users are getting value out of the product, then they would return that value to the business. And this honeycomb basically is it has basically it has 6 aspects or 6 parts of UX honeycomb, which are basically useful in making anything valuable, right? So how does we call it out? Basically, your product has to be useful, right? It has to be desirable, it has to be accessible, it has to be credible, it has to be findable, and it has to be usable. If you take out any of the pie out of this pizza, a hexagon pizza, you would basically lose the value. Your product would no longer be valuable for the users or the people or the human beings, right? So make sure, guys, whenever you are designing something, you think about these 6 aspects. Is the thing which you are going to design or which you are designing is useful enough? Is it desirable? Our users are having the desire to use that thing or that product? Is it accessible, right? Is it credible? Is it findable? And last but not least, is it really usable, right? Okay, and in combination of all these 6 parts, basically we get value. And this honeycomb basically, or we can say this 6 slice pizza will make your product valuable, right? And I guess I'd be definitely breaking down each and every step here, but in today's video I'll be just calling out the breakdown of UX workflow or UX design workflow, which I feel basically these are the different steps or these are the different aspects which has to be catered in the UX design, right? So we must do user research, we have to do information architecture, we have to think about the interaction design, we have to think about the writing, the visual design, and the last but not least, user testing, right? So basically there are a lot of different design processes, you can find valuable design processes, multiple design processes, guys. But if you break down any design process in the world, you would find the resemblance with these 6 points. The terminology could be different, the order could be different, the language could be different, but end of the day, these are 5 to 6 points which basically completes any UX design workflow or any design process, right? So understand your users, define the information architecture that will help your users to achieve their task, create an interaction design which will divide that information into interactable screens or interactable part, right? Then write the content, write the information which can be easily grasped by the user. I'm not saying data, right? I'm saying information. Data, like there is a slight difference between information and data, right? Data is everything, but information out of that data is the piece which user is interested, which gives value to the user, right? So writing is aspect of UX design. Then visual design, where all these things like the entire user research which we have did, whatever information architecture which we have defined, whatever interactions which we are planning to do, whatever information which we have plotted down, that all has to be bundled in a beautifully aesthetically appealing visual design, right? And when we done with all those things, definitely we can do user testing, which basically make sure that we are rectifying, or we are validating our assumptions, and we are not just doing designs in with the assumptions which may fall or which may not give the value to the user, or which may not be the appropriate or the positive experience which user would be getting out of it, right? So if you take each and every point, basically user research. So what you have to do in this is basically you have to find who are the users, find what they want, and find what is valuable for them, right? In interaction design part, basically you have to define how can users interact with the system, or interact with the product. Make sure that they understand how to use the thing, right? Or how to use the product, right? Or how to use a particular piece in your product. If it is a digital product, then a piece of software, or a module of the software, right? If it is a physical product, make sure it is like user is easily understanding by just looking at the things, okay? And guys, this term, like, right, intuitive design, right? Intuitive user experience design, or intuitive user interface design. So this term is very oftenly misinterpreted, because when we say intuitive, basically no one will able to understand just by looking at the designs in the first go, right? But intuitive means when user is doing like first experience learning, you can say, right? When user is experiencing something, when user is using something for first time, and then he don't have to make any extra efforts to remember the steps which he has taken to perform a task. Basically no matter once he is done with a particular task, once he is understood a particular experience, or once he understood a particular interaction, then there shouldn't be any extra efforts to remember that interaction. And that's what the intuitive design is. So once you learn something, then you will keep it in your mind forever, right? So basically next part we can say a visual design, where basically it helps to make sure that users are able to interact with the things. In interaction design, what we did, we defined how they can use or how they can interact with the system. But visual designs are basically that is a thin layer of the interface, which is basically helping users to interact with the system, right? And then information architecture is basically the content which user needs to perform the particular task, or to achieve their goal. What content basically they need, how it is organized on your product, or on your site, on your application. So it comes under information architecture, right? Then writing, basically proper use of words and content, you can say, in the writing. And user testing is basically, validate with the users what we have created so far, and make sure that they are enjoying what we have, and they are getting what they want out of it. Right, guys? So I hope, guys, I know this is valuable for you. I hope this is I don't want to stretch this out for a longer video. Definitely I'd be creating series in the UX design in its simplest format. I'd be talking more about these things in upcoming videos, but I feel that should be enough for as of now. And I hope, guys, you are enjoying the videos. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you have give your feedback in the comments. If you have any doubts, definitely reach out to us with the comments. Keep learning, keep designing. Take care. Bye, guys.